Hello everyone, we're back again and today we'll be fact-checking another LTE video. This one is the 2020 Senate elections according to 538. So basically what he said he did was take the bunch of 2020 polls on 538 and then just simply average them together to make this map. Now technically what he did was correct according to his own method. He did what he said he will do. But this is not the best way to make a polling map, as it's basically just simply averaging some polls, but somehow only picking polls in 2020, and there's some polls in January that shouldn't matter as much as polls in July, but somehow they matter equally, and yet earlier polls, for example, in December, they don't matter, so this is not the best way to do a polling map. So basically, what LTE did, I wouldn't say he's wrong, but it's not the best way. And it's not the best way to make a map based on polls. Before we start the video, be sure to follow our Instagram, Rational Poll Analysis, where we do maps and I do weight polls, and as well as a statistical forecast, and lots of stuff like that. So be sure to follow that. And now let's start. Now I won't be using my own Instagram polling tracker as I'm not well known enough yet, so I'll be using something more credible and more recognized, and that is JHK Forecasts, which is recognized by LTE himself as he used them in multiple of his own videos. Now, why did I pick them? Because the way JHK does their polling is very, very similar to how 538 does it. So they use their postal grade, sample size, recency, sample type, and then sample size gets weighed more with there's a curve and then diminishing returns based on the grade and stuff like that, so it's very similar to 538. And hence, it's why we're using it. And now first, so this is the map I made. So according to JHK, I didn't just follow their map as they use other elements in their forecast. For example, Iowa is red and Maine is blue. However, for pure polling, Iowa is blue and Maine is red. This is because, like, their forecast doesn't only uses polls, but other stuff like fundamentals, experts, to project a vote, and I only took the polling part. For example, for Iowa, the polls show Greenfield ahead. However, other factors shows Ernst ahead instead, and in this map, I only use the polls. So let's go ahead. Oregon, no surprise there. Idaho, Wyoming, these are the states that don't really have polls, and I just gave them to the Republicans. New Hampshire and Minnesota, I actually think they could probably get under 15, but there's no polls, or very few polls, and hence they're rated as safe. Now let's look at the states that actually matter. Let's start with Montana. LTE put it as lean blue. However, if you weight the polls via different things to give a better polling aggregate, as JHK did, it actually shows Bullock slightly up 0.6. Oh, that's my mistake. It should be tilt, not lean. It should be tilt. It was my mistake when making the map. My bad. And next, let's look at Arizona. According to the polling, Kelly is expected to win by 7 points according to the polling. Makes sense in my opinion. And next up we have Colorado, probably one of the easiest Democrat flips. And the polling has Hickenlooper winning by 11.7 points. I think it could get a bit closer. For example, JHK's full forecast shows it as 8.6. I think that's reasonable, but according to just the polling, it's 11.7 points. Now, New Mexico. I think there was one public policy polling poll, but they didn't include it here for some reason. Anyway, I'll just put it as safe. And Kansas. The polling shows a 1.7 point lead by the Republicans, and hence it's lean Republican instead of tilt blue, as LTE put it. If you actually average the polls with different factors instead of just 2020 polls averaged together. And Oklahoma should be safe red, no surprise. Texas is a 9.3 Republican win according to the polls, and hence it's likely red according to LTE standards. And then let's look at Iowa. I've already showed it just now. It's a 1.6 point Democrat win. In my opinion, I think it will go red by the end of the day, but at least according to polling right now, it's going blue. And let's look at Michigan. Polling shows an 8.8 point win for Peters. In my opinion, it could get closer. John James could get the margins closer, in my opinion, but at least according to the polls, it's going to be a roughly 9 point win for Peters. And Kentucky, according to the polls, this is actually surprisingly close. Mitch McConnell only leading by 5.5 points, and hence, but it's still in the likely column, but it's closer than many would expect. But if you take the full JHK forecast, it's going to be a safe McConnell win by 17.9 points. Personally, I think 5.5 is too small, and 17.9 is too big of a margin. In my opinion, it'll be somewhere in the middle, probably like a 14 point win, in my opinion. And Mississippi is another state that's surprisingly close in polling, just a 7 point lead for Hyde-Smith. However, again, in the full forecast, it's an 18 point win. Again, I think it's probably somewhere in the middle in reality. In Alabama, probably the easiest Republican flip. According to the polls, it's an 8.6 lead for Tommy Tuberville, who just won the primary there. And Georgia. Georgia is actually a fairly comfortable Purdue win. Instead of LTE put it as lean red. Oh, he put it as lean red. Yeah, that's fair. It is lean red. Now let's look at Georgia special. According to the polls, the Republicans combined are leading the Democrats combined by 13.9 points. That's likely according to LTE's margins. Now let's look at Maine. Maine is quite surprising in my opinion. Although JHK's full forecast shows it as a 2.4 Gideon win, just pure polling has Collins up by half a point. I presume this is due to earlier polling, maybe when he was a lot more she was a lot more popular back then. And probably there's a Republican internal poll that had her up 8 that probably pulled up the results, as we can see here. Maine, Senate. Yeah, there was a Republican internal poll that had Collins leading Gideon by 8, so that probably affected the results a bit. So that's why Susan Collins is winning by a tilt margin there. And South Carolina, the polls show it being a 10.5 Graham win. The full forecast is 13.5 win. I think both are reasonable. I expect Lindsey Graham to win in around that range. And North Carolina, probably the closest race in this election. The polls show Cal Cunningham leading by 2.6 points, which puts it in the lean column. The full forecast has it as 1.2 Democrat lead. I think the full projected vote is more reliable. I really think this will be one of the closest races, and I don't see either candidate winning by over 2 points. And yep, these are all safe Democrat states, and that's it. So, Alaska. Alaska is quite interesting. LTE made a video saying it was a battleground state, but not really, as according to the polls, the average is Sullivan leading by 11.4 points, and yeah, the full forecast has it as a 13-point lead, so it's a likely Republican state, an 11-point lead, and it's not really that close. So there we have it, the full map according to polling, according to the JHK, the polling part, which is very similar to 538's method, and you can compare it to LTE's map here and my map here, and you can see that his map has Democrats winning 53 seats and Republicans 47. However, when you actually use a better source for polling aggregation, it's a 50-50 tie in the Senate, which seems pretty reasonable. In my own prediction, I expect Iowa to be red and Maine to be blue instead, and maybe North Carolina would be like a toss-up. I think Maine could get close. Susan Collins could win, but as of now, I think Gideon would win. But anyway, here's the map according to polling, and thanks for watching.